Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you might be from. Good morning. My name is Leopold Sar, and this video that you're about to watch actually is going to share some information. You might be sitting in your couch and watching TV or in front of your computer. So I want to have a conversation one-on-one with you and bring out a topic that may be of interest to you. Wherever you might be coming from, you might be a believer in God, a Muslim, a Hindu, or you may not believe in any God. You might be an atheist or agnostic, and I would like to speak to you, whoever you might be. And the purpose of this video is to share some information about the book that I just released, and the book revolves around Jesus Christ. And my intention is to be able to provide some evidence about why I believe Jesus Christ is God, and I would like to hear from you what your opinion about after I present some evidence and some fact about Jesus Christ. You might be 20 years old, 30 years old, or you might be 60 years old. It doesn't matter. This topic can be of interest to you. And I'm going to talk about Israel a little bit, basically to put into the context of the country, why do I believe Jesus Christ is God himself. Now, the book was written with the intention to share some facts, some evidence that I'm going to present, and I would like to ask you to hold on to your judgment first, and let me share those information, and then let's have a conversation, a direct discussion. I believe, first of all, that the Bible is the Word of God. You may not think so, but I'm going to present some fact to tell you why I believe the Bible is the Word of God. First of all, there is something called prophecy that is very prevalent in the Bible. And there is a difference between prophecy and, let's say, forecasting. I'm speaking from Northern Virginia, and right now it's December 29, and it's pretty cold out here. And a lot of people do rely on the forecast, on the weather forecast. But if you take a lot of developing countries, poor countries, we have hardly opportunity to find out what the weather will look like in the next day, in the next week or so. So that is what is called forecast. And in your forecast, you may get it wrong or you may get it right. But when it comes to prophecy, when we talk about prophecy, it's something that has to happen. Otherwise, it's not a prophecy. So it's something that is spoken ahead of time, and at some point in the future, come to pass. And that's what I'm going to share with you. The Bible contains hundreds of prophecies, and some of them have been already fulfilled, some of them yet to be fulfilled. Now, the basis for claiming that the Bible is the Word of God is based on prophecy. And I'm going to present three prophets who talks about Israel and what Israel throughout history has been able to accomplish. And that was spoken several centuries before they take place. The prophet Isaiah, who lives around 700 BC, and you may go through your historical sources. You can go to the internet. You can check out your different sources and find out what I'm talking about. So Isaiah lives around 700 BC, and he was very close to the king of Israel at that time. And he prophesied that the Israelite, or the Jew if you want, are going to come back to the promised land, which is Israel, the second time. Now, when was the first time? If you go back to your history book again, you'll find out that the first time the Jew came back to Israel was after the Babylonian deportation. And they were able, after 70 years of captivity, to return to the land, to rebuild the Jerusalem, which were completely destroyed by King Nebuchadnezzar, who took over the city in 605 BC. And by 586 BC, the whole city was completely destroyed, and they were all sent to exile. Now they returned from that exile in the first time. The second time they returned from the exiles was in 1948. And Isaiah is telling us in chapter 11, verse 11, that God is going to set out his hand and take out the remnant of his people. And who are his people? The Jew. And he's going to bring them back to the land the second time. That only happened in 1948. Now, Isaiah wrote his book in 700 BC. From 700 BC to 1948, we have over 2,000 of years of history. Now, I don't know of any holy book that has made such accurate, precise prophecy predicting what is going to happen. And it happened exactly the way he prophesied. In 1948, you have hundreds of thousands of Jews coming from all over the world, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, and they were returning to Israel to repossess the land that was given to them. Now, Isaiah is one prophet. A second prophet called Ezekiel wrote again about the same prophecy, and Ezekiel lived around 627 BC. That's when he started his ministry, and he was deported as well in the second deportation of King Nebuchadnezzar. And his ministry spanned over 40 years. And he was warning the Israelites in captivity, telling them that Israel is going to come back to the land again the second time. And that's Ezekiel 37, verse 21 and 22. Just to give you the reference, and you can go back and check it for yourself. The third reference I'm going to give is this prophet called Amos. Amos also lived around 700 BC, around the same time as the prophet Isaiah that I mentioned earlier. And Amos said something very interesting. He talked about, now, if you know the history and the geography of Israel, you will realize that it is a desolate country. Over 70% of the land is desert. Only 20% is arable in terms of agriculture. Now, nobody was living there. They were all in exile, deported across the world. They were persecuted, ostracized. They were hated all over the world. And that's the all history can testify to that. Now, this prophet has prophesied, he has predicted that Israel is going to blossom as a nation. Now, if you're in your 20s or 30s, I'm sure you might be, going out with a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and you know that today Israel is one of the first exporter of flowers. I'm sure in Valentine's Day, you're very excited, to give flowers to your girlfriend, and maybe you don't realize that most of these flowers are coming from Israel, which is one of the first exporters. And they also produce a lot of fruits. They're able, with 20% of arable land, to feed almost 95% of the population. Now, this is a miracle, and it was precisely prophesied by Amos. Let me cite you the verse of Amos that talks about it. And remember, I said it was written 700 BC, and we are here in the 21st century. Now, verse 9, this is what God is saying. I will command and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations. Now, first of all, he's going to take them from all over all nations and bring them back to the land. And he's saying he's going to bring them back like as corn is sifted in a seed, yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth. All the sinners of my people shall die by the sword, which say, the evil shall not overtake nor prevent us. And I'm going to skip to verse 14. And he say, I will bring again the captivity of my people of Israel, and they shall build the wasted cities and inhabit them. Now, as I said earlier, Israel is very desolate. It's a lot of desert, but they're going to inhabit the land, and they're going to plant vineyard, wine, to produce wine. Today, Israel is also producing wine. And you can check the statistics, they're available. And drink the wine thereof. They shall also make garden. Now, we talked about flowers earlier. They're producing flowers, they're exporting many in Europe, and some of them in other countries. And they will eat the fruit of them. So they're also producing fruit today. Now, this is a miracle. And verse 15 said, and I will plant them upon their land. So when he bring them back to Israel, he's going to dwell them there, and nobody will be able to take them out of Israel. And this is what he said precisely, and they shall no more be pulled up out of their land, which I have given to them, say the Lord. Now, twice they were taken out of their land. The first time, as I said, during Nebuchadnezzar's time in 605 BC. And the second time happened in 70 AD, when the Roman crushed a rebellion of the Jew, and they killed over 1 million of Jews, and the remaining population were sent to exile. And since that time, they have been wandering around the world, being persecuted. They didn't have a nation, but still, they kept their culture, they kept their language, and their civilization. And 4,000 years after Abraham started the Jewish nation, they are still alive today. Now, how many nation cultures do you know that have been destroyed after being persecuted or being ostracized, and today they are completely gone? There is no language, there is no civilization, nor remainings of this civilization, but the Jewish culture is alive and is still prevalent around the world. And this is the reason why I believe the Bible is the Word of God, because there is not one single human being or angel or extraterrestrial who can predict what is going to happen 700 years before it happened. This is only found in the Bible. That's the first proof that I'm providing in the book. And I want to have a conversation with you. I want to basically hear what you have to say regarding this specific fact, because I would like the discussion, the debate, to revolve around evidence. Let's bring evidence. If we're talking about, something that we believe is true, we need to be able to provide evidence. And this is the evidence that I'm providing and I'm showing in the book. Now, the book has 7 chapters. Now, from every single chapter, basically, what I'm doing is I'm providing internal evidence. And this is using the framework of randomized experiments, which is very prevalent now in social science, where you run an experiment and you try to establish the causality and the internal validity of the experiment. So that's what I'm doing in the first instance in the book. Then in the second instance, I'm looking at the external validity of the experiment. So once you have established the first instance, the internal evidence, then in the second instance, you try to extrapolate what you have found into a bigger setting, into a different setting. And I'm doing that by providing extra biblical references. People who are not believers, who are not Christian, historians who actually provide historical evidence about Jesus Christ, what he has done, and the fact that he was more than a human being. And you'll be able to find that in the book. So this is the first part of a series of video that I'm going to share, and I'm going to stop here because next week, we're going to talk about the first chapter of the book, which deals with Jesus Christ having existed before his virgin birth. Meaning, before he came back in the 1st century, he was already alive in the Word. And I'm going to show you from the Bible why is that so. And then in the next week, I will also provide evidence that he has been around even before the world began. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.